First, though, to something called locked-in syndrome. It came to everyone's attention this week when a man suffering from the rare condition asked for a doctor to be allowed legally to end his life. A judge has ruled that Tony Nichlinson can take his case to the High Court now. He's paralysed, but his mind is fully functioning.
One person who knows exactly how that feels is Kate Allett. Kate is a mother of three, morning Kate, who had a stroke, believe it or not, 2 years ago. Doctors said then she would never walk or talk again.
But she's astonished them and everybody by recovering from locked-in syndrome. She's with us now. Good morning, along with Joe Corner from the Stroke Association.
Good morning.
Well, Kate, I mean, it's just an amazing story. February 2010, you are leading your life as normal, and then what happened?
7th of February 2010, a massive brainstem stroke, 2 blockages and one almost partial blockage of my basilar artery. And doctors scanned me 2 days afterwards, and there was no more blood flow to the area that was damaged, which is always going to, it was still damaged now. The prognosis was never walk, talk, or unlikely to walk, talk, swallow again and live in a nursing home.
Gosh, it's extraordinary. I will talk to Joe in just a sec about locked-in syndrome, but I want to ask you first, Kate, about your thoughts at the time. Can you remember?
Yeah, of course I can.
Because your mind is fully functioning.
Totally.
Although you can't, could you move at all?
Nothing. Week 8, 1 millimetre right thumb. 4 months, 3.5 months for the flicker to appear on my left side.
And you communicated initially by blinking?
Totally, 2 blinks for yes and 1 blink for no. And yes, I did think about everything. My mind was the same. I was the same person inside. I just looked awful, I felt awful, and for 16 weeks I didn't want to be around.
Oh, really? When you say you didn't want to be around, you'd made that decision in your own mind that...
I got 3 lovely children, and who were only 6, 9, 11 at the time. I'd got a husband he's been so amazing for me, I just thought, what if this is my life? What's the point?
Well, and there was a point too, because you made a fantastic recovery. But Joe, how many people suffer from locked-in syndrome, and how hard is it to recover?
Well, it's actually pretty rare. What happens when someone has a stroke is that the blood supply is cut off from a certain area of the brain, and that causes brain damage. And locked-in syndrome is where particular areas of the brain are damaged, affecting that paralysis. The thing about stroke, though, is that people can make amazing recoveries, not just because of physiotherapy or rehabilitation, but also because the brain is, they call it plastic, but the idea is that you can actually relearn things and your brain can make new pathways. And how that happens is not very well understood, but obviously in Kate's case, that's exactly what's happened, and it can happen many years after a stroke as well. So stroke survivors tell us that they carry on recovering, even from something as extreme as locked-in syndrome.
Right. I mean, the reason we're talking about this, of course, is that case of Tony Nichlinson, who's in locked-in syndrome and has decided that he would like a doctor to lawfully be able to end his life, and that's going through the courts at the moment. He's been allowed to have a hearing on that.
And I really, personally, I utterly sympathise. I cannot imagine 7 years on for Tony and his family. On a personal level, the loneliness, the feeling of worthlessness, the helplessness, the nightmares, the emotional torture, the indignity. I mean, the list can go on. But on a professional level, with my Fighting Strokes charity that I founded only 5 months after I left 8 months in hospital, we welcome this decision, because every stroke, every person is individual, and as long as each case is reviewed with special criteria, then I personally welcome the decision. I think it's up to individuals.
Kate's recovery was remarkable, miraculous, but fairly quick. And as you mentioned, Mr. Nichlinson's been suffering for years. Is there any chance that he could recover from that condition now?
Well, obviously, as a stroke charity, we can't know, and I'm not a medic, so we have to really trust what the doctors say. But it is the case that doctors quite often say to people, well, you're not going to recover anymore, and in fact they carry on recovering. Part of the issue is that recovery can be very slow, and it's very hard to measure in the type of clinical trials that medics do. But I think you should never give up hope. If you have the will and you have the support, then I think that people can really do remarkable things.
And I think the support is vital. But just one point to pick up on, my speech therapist was absolutely brilliant. However, she did say a week before my tracheotomy came out that Kate would never speak again to my husband, and a week later I did. It was my youngest son naively suggested I did try, and I tried and I did, and now look at me.
What did you say, or what did you attempt to say?
I said Woody. His name's Woody.
So you tried to say his name?
And then I had to say Indian Harvey and then Mark, but I couldn't say M and K, so that didn't come out
They all
right.
wanted you to say their names. What was the turning point? I was very struck when you said that you were in a very, very dark place for quite a number of weeks and couldn't communicate, apart from a few twitches. So what was the thing that turned it for you?
Week 16, I had a review in rehabilitation in Osborne 4, and the doctor opened the meeting, and I thought I'd made loads of progress. They couldn't see it. And that's something I think is important. That, and the doctor opened the meeting and said, I've nothing more to add. And we talked then about my long-term social nursing home care. And I got really angry, and I thought, damn you, I'll prove you wrong.
Could you hear that? They weren't having this meeting around you.
I was in the meeting.
You were in the meeting?
And I cried.
Yeah.
And the fight was brought on, which is why I call the charity Fighting Strokes.
And Jo, do we know what it is about Kate's case that helped her to recover than in others? Is it down to determination? Is it down to or is it something indefinable?
It's really, I think it is indefinable. I think that certainly the will to do things is very important in all rehabilitation. People have got to really want to do it, and you practice because you're relearning, and you're learning in a way for the first time things that you used to do and take for granted. So you do have to have really strong determination. But what that turning point is, and what the turning point was, that very strong emotion that you felt, Kate, I think that obviously was very significant. But it's very hard to scientifically or medically say what the actual trigger is for that type of recovery.
And I think it's also really important to say, with the charity, I deal with lots of people with locked-in syndrome all over the world, and from Gary Parkinson, who's he's making quality of life for himself by being a scout for Middlesbrough Football Club from his bed with a laptop. And the Parkinson family are just amazing that supported him.
And you've written a book?
I've written two books.
2 books now, about
2 books. Next one in May.
Okay.
Going to fly
Look
now.
at you, and you just can't see that you were
All
in
in
that
2
state
years.
2 years
I know.
ago. It is extraordinary. Thank you so much for coming
you.
in to talk to us about it.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate,
Thank you,
thank you too, Jo.
Time 17 minutes past 7. Still to come on the programme today. Does being married make you a better parent? As the government announces a strategy supporting marriage